All right, welcome to another episode of Warriors, not Warriors. This is KUDEN. Wednesday is Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. I know that because it's in the title. Anyway, Shion Miller here from Warrior Concepts, and we are on episode 270. Although one of my guys tells me that my count is off, or our count is off, or whatever, but I don't think so. But maybe because we tend to count these every week. But anyway. I know our Warriors Whiteboard Wednesdays are like up in the same. We've been doing KUDEN longer, but yeah. Anyway, that's in the couple of hundreds. What is 270 divided by 12? How many years is that, James? Anyway, so this episode, it's not just I didn't just pick words, right? Your hero's journey. Sounds all like, woo woo and stuff. There is actually this framework called the hero's journey. It was discovered, I think, or outlined by a philosophy and religion professor a couple of decades ago. His name was Joseph Campbell, right? One of my favorite reads as far as these things go. He's well known for the books Power of Myth, The Thousand Faces of the Hero, The Hero's Journey, and I think the first book I ever found of his was called The Inner Reaches of Outer Space. Very, very cool. So anyway, what he does is kind of ties these religions and philosophies and things like that, and the myths and metaphors and all that to psychology and to how human beings, since I don't know, they could probably rub two bile cells together and come up with an idea other than eating, shitting, and sleeping, engaged with the world and sought to be better, right? So anyway, this actually came about, this whole thing, right? I hadn't thought about Joseph Campbell in a long time. And so this past weekend, my daughter Trinity came in for class Saturday morning, and she wanted to borrow a book that I'd referenced a couple of times that Manaka Sensei had written. He's the head of the Jininkan, used to be Hatsumi Sensei's right-hand man in the Bujinkan, retired Japanese military colonel, I think is the rank that he retired at. Anyway, decided to dive much more deeply into some of the mindsets of Mushin, Heijoshin, Fudoshin. I outline all three of those in the Seishin Teki Kyoyo book. But he wanted to do it the right way, not just by, he has all these historical sources and scrolls and all those kind of things. But he wanted to do it by applying the scientific method. And there's this book, right, that I've referenced, and now I don't have it because I loaned it to Trinity. But you can look it up, right? And so she came down. She wanted to borrow that, do class, and we had a little conversation. And that conversation led to this, all right? Led to this discussion about where I brought up this The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. And then, of course, that led me to like dive back into things and all that. And the more I looked at it, the more I thought, folks need to see this. They need to hear this, because like every hero story from every culture across time, right, has this framework in it. That's what he did. Because that was his forte, right? Studying all these things and across cultures, across religions, across all these things, and discovered that there was this formula, right? And guess what? Once he published it, now all of our hero movies go by the same formula, which is in part cool, and in another part now it's predictable, and I have a hard time enjoying the movies the same way I used to, because each stage isn't a surprise anymore. But the cool thing is that this is your journey, right? This is your hero's journey. This is your path. The more we can know about how these things kind of transition, and that there might be rhyme and reason to it, then we might be able to be more prepared for hardships as they pop up, or little twists and turns and whatnot. So I thought it'd be cool to go through each of the stages. Of course, I could do an entire multi-week course on this thing, but we'll do an overview, right? And so that's the plan for this episode. So we'll do that, and we'll dive in, and we'll see who else is on as soon as we get back. So let's go ahead, and I'll see you on the other side.
So the big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio, real training for real people in a real world.
All right. That's the plan anyway, right? All right. So I know most of these things that I do, like when did Sensei ever say this? Okay. I know some people need that. So I've made sure that, the last bunch of episodes, I've been tossing in little quotes here or there, just so those who need to feel warm and fuzzy that, I'm not just another one of these jackasses out there making stuff up, that it's there. But let's be clear, right? We are all on our own path. Okay. Yes, we have teachers and mentors and peers and things like that, but I'm going to talk about this. There are 3 key points that I want to make during this episode. Okay. That we're going to pull from the topic, right? And I'll go back into that just a bit. Some of you are just still signing in and whatnot, but let's go ahead and just kind of acknowledge who's on and answer any questions that might have already popped up or whatever. But we'll pull James forward here. Okay. Who's on, James? Who's already checked in? Or did I lose James? Oh, there he is. Ta-da! Look at that. He's like his own little pop-up, isn't he?
So far, Jared, Trinity, and Maui have checked in.
Awesome.
Good evening. And your math question is 22.5. 22 and a half.
My math question is
70 divided by 12.
Oh. So wait. 270 divided by 12 is what?
22 and a half.
22 and a half months. That would be months then, right? So we're just short of 2 full years of... Is that right? Seems longer than that. Okay. 270 divided by... Oh, no, that wouldn't be right. 270 divided by... I guess maybe... No, 270 divided by 52. It's 52 weeks in a year. We often have... Well, no, we try to stick to it, but just do 50. 270 divided by 50 is now... That's going to sound much closer, right? Almost 6 years.
5.4. Oh,
yeah, okay. So 5.5 years. Okay. Well, that sounds way better because Whiteboard Wednesday, I think, has already gone over 3 years. So nobody can ever say that I'm not consistent, or, as one of my teachers used to say, persistent and tenacious. Tenacious was the word I think he used, right? That's a big word that just means I don't know when to give up or lay down. So anyway, cool beans. All right. So again, in part, this is my joke for the night. In part, if you enjoy this episode, great. You're welcome. If you don't, at least in part, it's Trinity's fault. Anyway, that's right. She has broad shoulders too, right? Anyway, so, let me get in my little notes here. Okay, so again, welcome to episode 270 of KUDEN. And so, what I want to do, my plans, just in case you're signing in late, some of you guys are here before the intro video runs, and I've got this little kind of a setup thing. But if you missed it, no big deal, right? What we're going to be doing is diving into something universal, right? Something that runs through all great stories across all cultures and all ages, okay? A university professor, historian, professor of religion, philosophy, that kind of thing, right? He discovered this universal framework in all these hero stories, and he committed it to notes and then paper and then books and whatever, right? Joseph Campbell called it the hero's journey. But this isn't just a myth. This isn't just a framework. Okay? It's your journey as a warrior protector. Okay? So again, just as a kind of a review and kind of an outline here. This past Saturday, Trinity had come in for class. She wanted to borrow this book by Manaka Sensei, and because does the whole psychology brain thing, and she wanted to dive much more deeply into these concepts, right? These different divisions of mind or mindfulness, or powers of the mind that in Japanese are called mushin no mind, which is again a mistranslation. It's a no left brain thinking, talking to yourself mind kind of thing. Heijoshin, ordinary mind, right? And again, I'm super paraphrasing, right? This is the mind that is our everyday mind, right? And so the idea that my teachers taught me a long time ago, where we're to train and work these skills and techniques and philosophies and all of them, whether they're internal skills, external skills, we're to work them to the point where we no longer have to think about them, because they're not only a part of who we are, they're a part of what we do every day. Okay? It becomes part of our ordinary mind, right? And then, of course, there's Fudoshin, which is really about emotional regulation, right? So anyway, she comes in, she's going through this thing, and she's just jazzed about doing it. As a matter of fact, I think in one of the upcoming big events, maybe fall camp, she's going to do a breakout session on her discoveries and kind of summarizing it through the lens of all these college and university smarts that she has. But anyway, the conversation led to Lao Tzu, the way of life, right? The I Ching, Book of Changes, that led to Alan Watts and his translations of these things, and how he wasn't really connected to anyone officially, like through a lineage, and so his interpretations and things. And then eventually, it popped into my head while we were discussing these things. And again, I'm not going to rehash the whole conversation, but it led to, as I was recommending these books, recommending authors, recommending books, Foundations of Tibetan Mysticism, and how that's really focused. The whole first section is focused on how the transformation of self and whatnot is really like that ancient story about the search for the philosopher's stone, right? And the ability, the alchemist and transmuting lead into gold. It's not about the lead into gold. It's about this heavy, practically worthless. I mean, I know we've come up with uses for it, but practically worthless lump of metal, right, into something that is absolutely valuable, right? That people fight and die over it, right? And how this transformation of self is like that, right? But we were discussing these things, and again, this eventually led to, it just popped into my head, right? This book by Joseph Campbell, The Inner Reaches of Outer Space. And then I was pointing out some of the other books by him, again, Power of Myth and a bunch of these other things. And after she left and went home, well, Dad's brain got stuck. So I went in and refreshed my head, because his big thing was in understanding how myths and metaphors and symbology and all these things, they come from us anyway, right? And they represent ideals and all kinds of things, right? And so this led me full circle back to this framework that he had discovered in all of these ancient hero stories that he calls the hero's journey, right? And again, this led me back down this rabbit hole as a good refresher, as a good review, and how Campbell showed how this journey like appears everywhere, right? From ancient myths all the way to modern films. Okay. So for some, I'm sure a lot of his university students who just wanted the damn credits for passing the class, it was a semi-interesting topic, you know, will this be on the test? That kind of thing. But if you know what you're looking at, much like in Mikyo and the 12-fold chain of dependent origination and all these things, right? It's a roadmap of transformation. Okay? It's the basis of all hero stories, but at the same time, it provides a map for us as we write our own story as we go through our own lives. Now, of course, there's plenty of people out there that, have self-prescribed themselves as enlightened, and they don't need this stuff, which just confuses the hell out of me as to why they dance around the internet, coming to or listening in on things like this or different gurus and different teachers and whatnot, when they already know everything. Who knows? But again, what I want to do during this episode is I want to show you how this timeless path applies to you, right? It's not just about learning techniques. Okay? This path is not just about learning techniques. This is about becoming the person who lives with power, confidence, control, and most importantly, and this was my lore, this was the terminology that got me, the freedom to walk through life on your terms, not someone else's, not anyone else's. Okay. So before I dive all the way into this, because there are 11 stages, 12 stages, something like that. Anybody else hop on? James, any questions, comments? Anybody mention that they're familiar with Joseph Campbell or?
Just this. Trinity said, "I'll take it. This is my special interest. Y'all can suffer."
Okay, then. So for those of you on audio only, she almost made me spit right in the middle of taking a drink. I have to keep my throat moist during these things because it dries out quickly. Anyway, all right.
And just Jimmy said "Konbanwa."
Konbanwa, Jimmy-san. All right. So this may be boring for some people, but my hope and plan is that you will recognize where you are. And again, I've got to do this in kind of the 30,000 foot level, because this is something that, well, Joseph Campbell did entire university level courses on it, whatnot. So semester long or whatever. So I can do an entire 10, 15 week course on this as to lead folks through, but I'm not. I don't have any plans for anything like that. So what we want to take a look at is the starting point, the ending point, and while like our 8 phases of effective self-defense strategy that is laid out in a linear fashion, there are points where you could end up like rolling back. For instance, right, if you're familiar with the 8 phases, the 8 phases are general awareness, which is where we're studying, we're paying attention to what kind of dangers we might have to face and deal with and whatnot. And we begin our study, right? The teacher can feed those kind of things and whatnot, right? But out in the world, right? General awareness educates us as to warning signs and cues and clues and how certain attackers have certain fighter types and whatnot, posture, how crimes kind of start to unfold and whatnot. So when we're doing phase 2, which is situational awareness, we're not just looking for anything, right? And we're not paranoid, we're not hyper vigilant, anything like that, right? We're also not just like jacking our jaw and giving people a reason to want to punch us on the throat, whatever, right? So it's the invisible stuff, right? Situational awareness is what most people think of when they start off with awareness. Okay, this is knowing what to look for, and it's a form of zanshin. Okay, that lingering mind, right? Knowing what to look for, establishing baselines, those kind of things, right? And then if something does trigger, right, and I make the decision that this is not going to go well, then we have phase 3, which is escape to safety. And then if you can't, and they're right in your face, then there are 2 de-escalation phases, distraction and dissuasion. And then we got phase 6, right, which is nothing worked up to that point. So now we've got physical defense. But it's not over after that. Win, lose, or draw, right? There's the possibility for those of us who are mere mortals and not the invincible ones out there, right? There's the possibility of PTSD, post-incident trauma, whatever. Either us or somebody else that was in it that we are close to and might have to help handle and whatnot, right? And then the final one is dealing with the legal system or the powers that be, right? If you work for a company or whatever, they might have certain policies, or it might be dealing with family, friends, whatever, where it's the aftermath. But phase 8 is really more about the legal kind of thing and or policies where you work or whatever, where now that they've seen the monster, they may not want you around anymore, those kind of things, right? So while it's linear, there's also a subjectiveness to it, right? Because we could be situationally aware and guys could come busting in the door, firing off some rounds in the ceilings and screaming, "Get on your faces," kind of thing. In which case we have jumped all the way over escape to safety and all the way over the de-escalation phases. And now laying on your face may be the physical defense movement for the moment until maybe you can do something else. But at some point, if there's a distraction, if there's an opportunity or whatever, we might roll back to escape to safety and haul ass out through a fire escape door, something like that, right? So it's not as clean as it looks. I mean, if the guy steps out of a doorway, he suddenly has you in a bear hug and his friend's about to shiv you or whatever, right? Escape to safety's gone, right? So it could be neat and clean, right? And that's why we prepare for them, because if we can break these down into these smaller chunks and then put skill sets into each of these things, then should the opportunity arise to be able to handle the situation that way, then we're good, right? It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. But at the same time, life is messy, right? Things are subjective. Subject to change are all things, right? And so there's that fluctuation, right? There's that ability to do that, okay? This is going to be the same way, right? So I'm going to lay it out. And we'll see what kind of time we have, because there is some not subjectiveness to it. The phases do move, but there are a couple of things that are recurring themes. If you were on Whiteboard Wednesday last week, and any other Whiteboard Wednesday where I've covered the 5 phases of self-defense, which is the 5-part framework that fits inside of phase 6 in the 8 phases, then we have discern, defend, disrupt, deliver, discern. But what I covered last week, and as a constant reminder, is that there is a certain type of discernment. There's a certain type of zanshin. There's certain things we're looking for, paying attention for, or pay attention to, and using as a gauge. We're assessing at each stage, right? Am I accomplishing the goals? Is there an uh-oh moment? I need to roll back, right? This is not hard and fast. While the framework is the framework for all hero stories, and this is absolutely a path. Not only, well, you'll see, right? There are external factors that can get in the way. It's kind of like our GOMA, goal setting, active meditation that we do New Year's minimum, but other times as well, where there are external forces that could derail us. But there are also internal forces, our own habits, delusions, whatever, that can derail us. Okay. And if we get derailed too far, right, like we already think we're enlightened, then there's no help for us. Okay. It's kind of like overdosing on medicine. Medicines ultimately are a poison, right? But take too much, well, okay. Same thing with, being all wrapped up in yourself too much. Anyway, all right. So the place where we start is the place where everything starts. Okay. So I'm going to go through this, but I want to highlight 3 major points as well. Okay. Because these are non-negotiable. It doesn't matter if you know this hero's journey in the 12 phases or the 12 stages. It doesn't matter if you believe in it. It doesn't matter if you're using some other format. It's kind of like gravity, right? You don't have to believe in it. But if we sweep your legs, gravity's my ally. It's going to yank your ass to the floor, right? So, but there are these 3 core lessons, I guess, core points that for many, I know if they were for me, are painful, because we want this to be a smooth ride. But again, life is messy, right? All right. So James, any questions or comments before I keep on rolling?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So the hero's journey begins where everything begins, in the ordinary world, right? This is something that's brought up in Mikyo quite a bit, right? Samsara and Nirvana are made of the same material, okay? But everybody starts in this realm of suffering and discontent, okay? But again, every journey starts in the ordinary world, right? Luke Skywalker's journey started as a little kid on this freaking sandy island, or a sandy planet and whatnot, being raised by his aunt and uncle. And every story has this thing where you're introduced to the character in the ordinary world. Okay. Well, here we are, right? For some of us, we might find ourselves in other stages down the line because we've been around, or we've been through this for a little while, or it looks like we're there, but the reason that we're running into certain problems or things have stagnated or whatever is because we missed something along the way, and it might require a little bit of revisiting, right? But for most, right, at this point, life looks stable. Good job, family, routines, those kind of things. Even people that, you know, don't have a good job, they don't like their family, whatever. Things are at least doable, right? They don't have a lot of worries unless they create their own, whatever. Okay, but they have these routines. They have a level of comfort, even if it's in their own acceptance of the way things are, right? But inside, there's a sense of being stuck. They feel manipulated by systems, by toxic relationships, by societal pressure, work responsibilities, you name it, right? In the context of martial arts and self-defense, they know they're not prepared for real threats, physically or mentally, right? Generally, in the world, they long for confidence, control, freedom. They're tired of feeling like everybody and anything else is in control of their lives except them, right? Think about the movies you've seen, right? Hero movies and whatnot, right? There's this pressure, right? There's this is this all there is? There's this drive, there's this longing for more, right? The insidious forces here, though, right, is maybe not these other things. Maybe it's fear disguised as caution, right? It could be where we've heard all the cliches, right? Can't have your cake and eat it too. All kinds of things, right? But maybe it is external. Emotional manipulation by bosses, by peers, by significant others, by the media. And what we end up with is the slow erosion of the belief in ourselves. But it sounds like I'm painting a real doom and gloom thing, aren't I? You'll watch your hero movies differently from now on. Okay, even if the movie starts in the middle of something, if you know the origin story, that's where you want to go, right? But again, this isn't just external, right? It's an inner prison, right? It's a feeling of almost being in prison or being trapped, stuck, right? They accept limitations as just the way it is, right? And that's where the journey begins. This is the ordinary world, the starting point of every hero's journey. Safe on the surface, but underneath, there's a storm. And this individual, you, me, know something has to change. Okay? Anybody that's ever been through any of my Mikyo or pre-Mikyo programs, when we discuss the Four Noble Truths, it's exactly where the Four Noble Truths start. Right? Life is conditioned by discontent, dissatisfaction, suffering. You know, people are going to be like, well, I mean, it's there, but like not all the time. I mean, for me, okay, yeah, but doesn't it feel like a roller coaster ride sometimes? Right? You got the high days, you got the low days, but what are we taught? Well, you know, depends on how you tune your mind in. That's true. However, if we pick one side or the other, doesn't make it change. Okay. But the next part in the Four Noble Truths is the cause of, which is Trishna, right? Misdirected desire, which again in the ordinary world shows up as just this. You know, in Mikyo, it's wanting things to be a way they can't, wishing they were something else, not wanting to have to put up with things that we have to, not getting those things that we want, getting the things that we want, but why do I have to get the negative along with the positive, right? I love owning my own house, but like shit breaks and now a landlord doesn't fix it, I have to fix it. Oh, and shit, I got to pay property tax. So it's like renting anyway, except that, well, it's the same, right? If I don't pay my taxes, it's the same as not paying rent, except instead of a landlord kicking me out, my own community kicks me out of something I bought and paid for. Wow. That's interesting. Who the hell convinced me that was something that was a cool thing to sign up for? Anyway, right? So, but again, there's this starting point where now a lot of people, this hero's journey, there are many other journeys. There are many other archetypes and things like that, right? So for a lot of folks, this wouldn't make any sense because their journey was to establish a sense of comfort so they can kick back in their easy chair, binge watch Netflix, eating, one of those orange powdered corn puff kind of things, right? Getting the shit all over their fingers and then licking it off and sucking it down, or washing it down with a beer or soda or whatever. That's their like ideal. Okay? Well, that's not the hero, or what we call the warrior. That's not their journey. Okay. So if this resonates with you, then this is one of those universal archetypes that it's been around practically forever. Okay. So that's stage one. Stage one is the person finds themselves in the ordinary world, and there's pressure. There's internal conflict, right? There's turmoil. There's a drive for something more while feeling stuck because everybody else is acting like this is just the way it is. Okay. Well, that feels like shit. Okay. But this leads to the next stage. The next stage, Campbell called the call to adventure. Right? I know how that sounds like a swashbuckler pirate movie and all that kind of stuff. But what it is this unease and this internal drive, right, is the call to become more than they are now. Okay? There's got to be something better. There's got to be something better. And then it comes, this call to adventure. Okay? Something awakens the dormant warrior spirit. Could be anything, right? It's different for everybody. It could be news of random violence. It could be a close call they had. I ended up with a couple of teenage students a bunch of years ago, Nate and Thad, best friends and whatnot. And they came to the dojo one night and they just watched class. And then I was talking to them afterwards and whatnot. And here, what brought them in, their call to adventure, call to action, was they were, this had to have been, this is a long time ago. So this had to be like a Tuesday evening. So the previous Friday or Saturday night, because they were high school students, they were at a party and having a good time. Everything was going fine. And it was maybe like a school dance because they went to the lavatory, opened the door to go in, and there is this guy jacking the shit out of somebody else. This guy, the guy that he was beating on the floor, face was bloody. He was already turning purple, like that dark bruised kind of thing, right? And what they told me was, up to that point, they thought they had their shit handled and they thought they could handle things. And then they walked in on that moment. And what they both said was, after discussing it afterwards, they realized that they were totally unprepared, not only for that level of rage and brutality, because it didn't look like any other school fight that they had seen. They were so unprepared for that. But the realization that not only did they not know what they would have done if they were the target, but they felt like shit because they were helpless because they didn't know what to do to help. And then they felt like cowards because they ran out. That was their call. That was their moment of feeling powerless. Right? And that's what this is. The inner voice says, I need to be stronger. I need to be ready. Right? But this call isn't just about physical danger. It's also about refusing to be controlled by fear, by circumstances, or other people. Right? This call is an invitation to reclaim your personal agency. You know what that means? Agency, your ability to steer your own life based on your own decisions, your own design, your own actions. Okay? So, again, for many of you, right? For those who are listening audio only, right? I'm talking to you, right? For many, the real danger isn't the mugger in the alley. It's the creeping sense that you're not in control of your own life, right? You feel manipulated by circumstances, drained by obligations, and unsure if you can really protect yourself, let alone those you care about, from all the forces pressing down on you. I don't know if you can relate to that or not, but I can. Like I could, right? Every once in a while, things rear their little head and whatnot, and the ordinary world kind of reminds me that there's monsters out there doing things that, while I'm not surprised by the violence and I'm not surprised by the way human beings treat each other, and while I aspire to a higher level and try to help others get there, every once in a while, somebody does something that makes me stop and go, well, that's new. Okay. But that just feeds back into the training and the planning and how I would deal with that if it's even doable, because we can't survive everything. Right. But this leads us to the first major point out of those three that I'm extrapolating from this path. And that is the same thing that Hatsumi Sensei, Stephen Hayes, Sushi Malmstrom, every teacher that I've worked with has reminded me. This is your journey. This is my journey. No one else can do it for you. No one else can do it for me. While we find teachers and we get the lessons, ultimately, every single one of us has to walk our own path alone, has to take our own hero's journey. Nobody can do it for you. They can help by providing, by guiding, by being a support group. That's your peers, your fellow students, whatever, right? But ultimately, nobody earns your black belt for you. And hopefully, for Christ's sake, nobody gave it to you. Right? But it happens. Okay? I know my 10th dan was given to me because 3 of my peers submitted paperwork because that's the way it was done. So while I was surprised when they presented me with the certificate at one of my own camps, right? They all showed up and had this document from Hatsumi Sensei and presented it. While I was surprised to find out that all it took for me to get that level was that 3 people vouched for me. Wow. And then I started thinking about, shit, how many other people reached that level because their friends and people that liked them or whatever just wrote fucking letters. So if anybody ever wonders why I give less than 3 shits about rank, there might be a kick in the nuts. But let me get off that, right? The question isn't whether or not you even want it to be your journey, whether you want to believe that it's, nobody else can do it for you or whatever. It's true. Again, it's just like gravity. It's just like air, right? But the challenge is, will you step onto the path or will you stay where you are, right? So that's the challenge at this crucial point at stage 2. Okay? And as Joseph Campbell says, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek, right? But in every hero's journey, there's also the refusal of the call. Now, for those of us, and I remember the first time I saw this, I'm like, I didn't refuse shit. My defining moment was in, at one point was in junior high school when this karate club started. And, wow, it's open to anybody? Shit, I'll do that, right? But then, getting out, becoming a cop and doing these kind of things and realizing that self-defense training is worse than bullshit in most places. And then, being stationed in South Korea as a military cop and having a day off and collected all these martial arts magazines. I'm literally reading from cover to, I'm that bored, cover to cover, every ad, every letter to the editor, it's just every article, right? Regardless of the style, regardless of the focus, right? And there was that call to this art because I hit this article. I didn't know this guy from Adam Ninjutsu. What the hell is that, right? As a matter of fact, I remember being turned off by it because I didn't realize that this was an excerpt from the same book where I kept seeing the cover. That was this. Well, then all the black magazines were black and white on the inside anyway. But turns out to be this plain orange cover with this masked face. And I just remember always rolling my eyes like, fuck, man, people sell anything. People buy anything. Holy shit, right? So I get it where a lot of these naysayers, right, out there come up with their thing because they know less than I did, right? But 2 paragraphs in, I knew that this was what I was looking for. Now I had a name to put to it, and I had at least one person that I could reach out to. Okay. So I always thought I didn't refuse anything. But then there came that moment where I sat down to write a letter to this teacher across an ocean, right? And all of the shit that my stepdad beat into me mentally, physically, emotionally about not being good enough and being stupid, no matter what my grades were, all those kind of things, because he needed to break me. The guy he dropped out of school in 6th grade. I get it. Family was poor, had to, whatever, but he took that inferiority complex and beat others down so that he could feel like the big man. And he had been in my life since I was 15 months old. So I'm sure you can imagine, at least in part, how much of that programming, how much of my own sense of self, right? So there's this drive for more, to do more. There's this call. Yes. But then comes the hesitation. Because my hesitation in writing that letter was all these words, all these thoughts, all that just echoed in there. And then the fear. Maybe this master could smell it in the letter, on the paper when it gets there, right? I'm hoping that he would say, okay, I can train, but knowing my life, it was, wow. And there I was. I'm a military cop. I'm, supposed to be a walking, talking example of military regulations and all these kind of things. And I was confident in my job, in my world, and all that. And I go to write a letter to a teacher who, from all the information I had at that moment, looked like they had what I wanted, what I was looking for. I almost never sent that letter. Okay. Because stage 3 is called refusal to call, right? Because there's hesitation. But it's not always just, it's not always an overt fear like mine was. It can sound perfectly reasonable. I'm too busy, too old, too out of shape. I don't make enough money. You know how much it costs to get to Japan? Are you nuts? Right? Fear whispers, you'll fail. Don't even try. You should be lucky that you have what you have. Right? Of course you can figure it out just by watching YouTube videos. Right? The person rationalizes staying comfortable, even while hating that same comfort zone. This is the same pattern as staying silent when being manipulated. I don't want to rock the boat. Right? Staying in a job you hate. Staying small. The refusal reflects your current limits, current belief in self and what we're deserving of or capable of. But you know what? It's also a chance to break them. So here, using a metaphor from the Matrix, right, is the first red pill, blue pill moment. Take the red pill and see how deep the rabbit hole goes. Or take the blue pill, go back to sleep, wake up tomorrow morning and tell yourself whatever lie will make you feel comfortable. All right? So for those of you who went through, again, Mikyo and pre-Mikyo programs, all the way up to this point, right, there's the ordinary world, right? And then remember that first character in the Jusan Butsu, 13 Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? Fudo Myo. In the context of that training, Fudo represents the world shaking you awake and presenting you with this opportunity. But it's also scary. And again, you have this red pill, blue pill moment, whatever, right? But what we do here, right? Do we stay in the rationalization? Do we stay in the excuse making, all these things? Or do we move, right? Do we reach out? Okay? Because there's lots of things. If we're not advancing, if we're not growing, if we're not in an adventure, if what we're doing is not so big, it scares the shit out of us and makes us wonder what the hell we're doing, then it's not big enough. It's not an adventure. Is it a journey? Well, I mean, we're all on this journey through life. Yeah, I know. But you know what? I can hop on a ride at an amusement park. That's a boat on water. But the ride produces the current. And I don't have to do shit. I don't have to steer or whatever. I guess I'm on a journey. But I'm really just sitting there going wherever the freaking current and the shape of the ride takes me. Yeah, it's a journey. But we're talking about being in control of the journey. Not just taking the journey. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to pause here, right? This is 25% point, right? James, questions, comments? Anybody throw anything out there? What the hell? I hit the wrong button.
No.
No?
Yeah.
Nothing yet. Put them to sleep. This is going to be one of those ones that, you know, everybody wants the strategies and tactics. And, you know, whenever I do one of those episodes and stuff, then, you know, the numbers are like, wow, right? Show me the cool trick, sensei. Why? Binging Netflix and binging YouTube and all the other sensei videos and whatnot. Seriously, how many techniques have we watched on YouTube or wherever How many DVDs do we have? How many, whatever, right? And how many of them have we actually worked on significantly? That's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer, right? Because I'm loaded up with stuff as well, right? But have we not worked on it yet because it's in a queue, or have we not worked on it yet because we forgot that we even watched the video and saw the cool move? I don't know. Can't answer, right? Because the ordinary world, its biggest pull, and we've done a whole KUDEN, multiple KUDENs on this, right? Is comfort, right? As long as this is a neat idea, as long as this is something I hope for, wish for, I'm working on it, but like I'm eking out progress. I'm not all in. That's a huge concept in Mikyo, and what makes Mikyo different from all the other exoteric paths is that all eggs go in one basket. Get it handled so that we can jump back into the ordinary world, have a good time, and not be trapped, not be stuck. Right? Because ultimately we're in the ordinary world anyway, but how are we navigating it? Are we stuck and trapped, or are we the captain of our own ship? I know all these metaphors, right? What's a metaphor? I don't know. It's something sandwiched between Meta 3 and Meta 5, I guess. I don't know. All right. So let me get back over to my notes before I do some other dumb dad jokes. Trinity reaches out and says, don't do that. All right. So stage 4 in the hero's journey is called meeting the mentor. Think about, the characters meet Gandalf, Luke Skywalker meeting Obi-Wan or meeting Yoda, right? Neo meeting Morpheus. Me meeting Hatsumi Sensei or Stephen Hayes, or you meeting whoever your teacher was, or whatever. Okay. This is where we get over the shit that all falls under the refusal, right? And we make that commitment. Okay. But there's things we need to understand about the mentor. And there's a reason I'm using that, because there are things that if we get it wrong at this stage, we're literally still in the refusal of the path. It's obvious when somebody says, I don't need no stinking teacher. They're just highly paid bullshitters that tell you what to do. I can learn everything I need to learn off of YouTube. Okay. So why are we talking? Why are you on these, right? Anyway, so we'll define the mentor role, right, in myths, because they really are nothing more than a guide. The one thing we have to understand about mentors is they've already done the work. Their job is to guide and point the way, not to bullshit somebody. Like, they don't need a disciple. They don't need this person, right? Yoda was living perfectly happy in a bog, in a freaking hut, away from everybody else. And if you understand the origin stories and all that, he was living the life equivalent of the old guy that is just fed up with people sitting on his front porch, drinking a beer and telling people to get the fuck off his lawn. Right. Just retired away from everybody. Right. Morpheus is a little strange because Morpheus was looking for the one, but even if you understand that movie, the Oracle said that Morpheus had the ability to be the one. He just believed that it was somebody else. Okay. Obi-Wan, right? Living out on a freaking desert planet, all that stuff, right? So they don't need the disciple. Okay? But they just might see something in the disciple. But there's something that there's, and this is where we're going to hit the second important point, right? I'll get to that in a minute. Okay. So, but at this stage, right, by accident or by design, right, they actually go looking for a teacher, right? Me, I was bored to tears going through all of those, that put me going through all those magazines and stuff to find this article, which is actually an excerpt from this book that I thought was stupid, right? That was this leading guy in this art in the West at that time, whatever, right? But in all truth, I had been searching for a martial arts teacher, and I had a sense of what it was that I needed because I had been beaten in the home, out of the home, in school, all that kind of stuff. It's one of the things that put me on the path for law enforcement. Let's put me in the military, all these things, right? There was this drive, but I figured I'd learn a lot more and a lot faster from somebody who already knew how to do things. So I had jumped from school to school, teacher to teacher, trying to find this thing that matched my experience in the real world and wasn't some sportified thing or whatever, right? But either way, right? So at stage 4, meeting the mentor, right? The hero to be, we'll call them, right? They find a guide, maybe through content, right? Maybe through a class, maybe through a conversation. In my case, right, through this magazine article, right? They sense that this person has walked the path that they want for themselves. The big thought here, or an overriding thought here, is that this person understands, right? They have faced fear. They've mastered control, right? And hope sparks, right? Because that's what we have. We may be disappointed later. Many of us have been with prior teachers, mentors, whatever, right? But hope sparks, right? This person can guide me. Okay. But here's where a problem or a misunderstanding comes in. The mentor doesn't rescue the hero or the hero to be. They equip them. They teach them. They guide them. Okay. This destroys the myth of guru worship. The master's job is to give us tools. It's our job to learn how to wield them, to learn when to use them, when not to use them, those kind of things. Of course, they're going to point things out, right? But a lot of this, I was told by my teachers, you're going to learn 10% of this art or 10% of what you need from me. The other 90% is your own exploration. It'll come out of your own path. But this guru worship, this teacher, master worship, whatever, this is another aspect of refusing the path, where they want to be the prodigal son. They want to be teacher's pet. They want to be, they want to have all the teacher's attention. That's a huge distraction from the learning process. Success comes from embodying the lessons, not memorizing them so that we can regurgitate them back, not idolizing the teacher, not worrying about whether things are official. Are there right ways and wrong ways? Yeah. But if we're stuck on the form for longer than the form stage, but then how would we know if we didn't really have a mentor when we were actually ready to move from one stage, from shu to ha to ri? How would we know if we weren't being guided by somebody who knows? Well, I feel it. I know there's a kung fu teacher in my local area. This is nothing about kung fu. This is about this guy. I found out years later, after meeting him as a black belt, that he never earned his black belt or his black sash. Okay, he was a brown sash, and needed to do certain things to qualify to even, test for his black sash. And his teacher kept, no, you're not ready for this. You need to do X, Y, Z, that kind of thing. And it wasn't like this bullshit kind of thing. Now, to him, it was. And at one point, he got pissed off and walked away from the teacher and decided, I already put in my time. I know all the techniques. I'm already a black sash, so I'm just going to wear one. So he promoted himself. And that's what a lot of people do. Okay? That's refusing the call. They want more. They know life is, that there's got to be more than this ordinary life, but they go and pull a dumbass thing that everybody else does to make themselves look important, to look skilled. So they do an ordinary bonehead thing. Interesting. Anyway, right? Again, success comes from embodying the lessons, from walking the talk, right? From earning every technique, every skill, every move, every mindset, right? Success doesn't come from idolizing the teacher. It can look that way because some teachers, right, give certificates, give promotions, give whatever as motivators, especially Japanese. I can't speak for Chinese or Korean or whatever, although the Asian mindset tends to be the same, even though many of them don't like each other. The overriding kind of thing in the East is this motivational kind of thing, because everybody knows what's expected of them and everybody fears losing face, being found out, right? And so if they're promoted to a position or to a level higher than they know they are, and they know that they could be called on that at any time, they go off to some corner and practice their ass off until they're worth that. Here in their world, people don't do that. Okay? The hero wannabes who refuse the call, and so they just, they want more out of life, so they just do what everybody else does, and they manipulate and con to convince everybody around them that they're the shit, right? Because they don't really. It's not about becoming the hero. It's about being seen as the hero. They so want to be the mentor. Well, they still want to be the hero, but they don't understand the mentor hero kind of thing, right? Because if we worship the hero, or if we worship the mentor, okay, I promise you, Hatsumi Sensei, Stephen Hayes, Shiroshi Malmstrom, even though he was a combat vet, I believe, at least in law enforcement. No, he was a Marine. When I was sitting on that C-130 on my way to Grenada for that little moment in my life, M16 between my legs, staring at the fuselage on the other side, running through training, running through lessons, running through and developing a plan in my head about, like, if this plane doesn't get vaporized in the fucking air and we actually land, as soon as I breach that door, what I'm looking for, where I'm going to, looking for cover, I'm trying to develop this plan in my head while listening to the tough guys that used to run around during the freaking field exercises, right? Crying and praying. I promise you, neither Soke nor any of my other teachers were sitting in that fucking parachute seat, those web seats, on their way with me. None of them just took my place. Right? But it was being able to apply the lessons, remembering the words, using the skills, right? In those moments where some jackass that I was trying to apprehend decided to turn my own gun on me, right? The grenade answer, all these things, right? It's things that I survived, the things that I learned, right? Things that I now pass on, right? The biggest thing, the biggest aha moment when it comes to the mentor, the teacher, right? Is the teacher is your mentor, not your hero, not your savior. Okay. In the hero's journey, the teacher's not the hero. In my student's journey, and this is where a lot of instructors get shit wrong, right? Lives are small. And for some, not all, but for some, they're so stuck in that ordinary life that the only place that they feel like they have control is in the four walls, floors, and ceiling of the dojo. And so when they're teaching a class or when they're promoting their training group, they're talking to somebody who might be interested, right? They need to be the hero. But they're not the hero. They're the hero of their own journey, their own path, right? The student, the prospect, that's the hero to be. I'm not here to save them. They're not a damsel in distress. And if I treat them that way, they won't learn the damn lessons they need to learn to be the fucking hero. They'll be another coddled wuss who believes they're the shit until the shit happens and they're crying and praying like the tough guys that were sitting several seats down to my right on that airplane. The teacher is not the hero. So they need to stop thinking that way. And we, as the students, right? I know, right? It feels that way. They're the master. They're the one who's been through all the shit. And so I need to trust them that the instructions they give me, not just the lessons, not just the technique demonstrations, the way they carry themselves, the way they speak, whether it's verbally or in written form, right? I mean, think about a lot of martial artists that you know, a lot of fighters, a lot of self-defense people. They speak like they've got a 6th grade fucking education. They barely use manners. Now, maybe your circles are different. My circles are definitely different now because I built my own life. But, man, talk about having to weed through teachers. I was in and out of the military twice. 7 months between 2 different enlistments because I got out to be in civilian law enforcement and the job market just sucked. And I don't just mean in my area. I traveled and I took tests locally and as far away. Now I'm in East Central Pennsylvania. You can look up Sunbury, Pennsylvania. At that point, I was in Harrisburg. I traveled as far as Fairfax County, Virginia, just outside of DC. In all directions, taking these tests. And finally just went back in. Right? But when I was out that first time, taking care of some things, and one of them had to go to a courthouse, legal paperwork, DD 214, all that kind of stuff, and come out and there's a martial arts school right across the street. Ta-da! Right? This was obviously pre-ninjutsu days. So I go over. Looks nice on the outside, whatever, right? I go in, And it looks very traditional, nice. There's a kamiza at the end, right? There's railing set up, wood decor. And there's a lone teen student in the middle of the floor working long staff. And the door opened up away from me to my right. And so I couldn't see on the other side here in the viewing area. And so but I hear this instructor, okay, just giving little tips and things like that, right? And so I close the door and I look over, and there he is, full dressed in uniform, sitting on a radiator, giving instructions between puffs on a cigarette. It's like a punch in the face. Wow. Wasn't sitting upright, wasn't standing, just, and looked at me like I was some imposition. There was no cordialness. There was no professionalism. There was no respect or manners. There was arrogance. There was you're coming to me for stuff and maybe. And I had met plenty of them. They're the ones who, during your first class, they beat the shit out of you to make a point about who's in control. Out getting drunk with students. One in the area. I don't know what the hell ever happened to him. Went to jail several times. Beating his wife, beating his kids. This is what we have to contend with. Okay. So, but again, point number 2, right? The teacher, the actual teacher that we need, the Yoda, the Obi-Wan, whatever. Yes, they're teaching techniques. Yes, they're teaching skills. Yes, they're, but they're making you do it for yourself. If anybody's a Star Wars fan, I'm not typically a Star Wars fan, but there's lots of these reference points in there, right? It was Morpheus constantly reminding Neo that when he actually figures out that this journey is about him, then he'll stop blocking all these abilities, right? When Yoda was trying to teach Luke Skywalker how to raise the fighter jet up out of the freaking swamp, right? And Luke is just resisting it every turn, right? I can't do that. I'm not you, right? Well, you're not there yet, but a little trying might be in order here. And it was that constant, even the threat that, well, if you're not going to do anything, then perhaps you should just leave. Okay. So, again, idolizing masters, Hatsumi Sensei, whatever, right? Without walking your own path, without walking my own path. It's just another one of those things that stunts growth, because the focus is not on integrating the lessons. It's on them and how awesome they are. Well, I hope fucking so. We wouldn't be there learning from them if they were barely 2 steps ahead of us. Right? Just like Luke's belief, I can't, right? Well, you're right. Nothing happened. Growth only comes when he owns the challenge. And when does he own the challenge? Well, I don't remember all the words, but what I do remember is Yoda giving him an ultimatum. Okay? And like Morpheus in the Matrix, right? I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it. Okay? The teachers can teach the techniques, and this is the secret about the teachers that I mentioned in the beginning. Okay? The teacher's job begins and ends with conveying the lessons as correctly as possible. not just demonstrating the techniques, not just telling you what skills you need to learn, about mindset, about the kind of person, right? We are. Hatsumi Sensei has a lot of these lessons in the books. Everybody gets focused on the videos of the physical demonstrations, whoop ass. But who's the person that's living everyday life and producing results? The amount of people in this art that condemn people that have dojo like I do. Oh, it must be a big dojo because you've got this place and you're not supposed to make money off this stuff. Except Hatsumi Sensei is a millionaire. Really? Explain that one. He's an author how many times over? He's been made honorary citizens and he's received all these degrees and awards and whatnot because the man pisses and shits success. So maybe we should pay attention to more than just the Ichimonji no katas and the Jumonji no katas and whatever other variation or henka, or things that Hatsumi Sensei does a move in the dojo. Next time you get a chance to watch one of these videos on YouTube, maybe time better spent, and you watch Hatsumi Sensei do something, and the student drops, and I almost said everybody applauds, but not everybody applauds. Next time you see a moment like that, where everybody's applauding, like there's a performer on a stage entertaining them rather than teaching them, scan the faces, scan the people who are leaning in, who look kind of puzzled, who are trying to sort out in their head how he just did that. Not applauding a cool move. When you see that, you will see a huge difference in mindset between those who are there to learn something and those who are there to learn that thing that they came to him to learn. It's not the same. Right? It's not the same. Stage 5. Stage 5 is called crossing the threshold. So we seek the teacher, if it's anything like mine, in several instances. Hayes, Malmstrom, Isuka Sensei, Kasem, one of Isuka Sensei's students, Hatsumi Sensei. There was a spoken, sometimes unspoken, degree of expectation, standards. Hayes was one of those who said, I want to see this, I want to see this, I want to see this. But he made very clear, but it'll ultimately be up to you. Right? Other ones, look, damn it. I want to see this. I want to see that. What the hell is that? I want to see this. Look, if you're not going to do this, there's the goddamn door. Everybody did it differently. Mentors don't need the student. And if they're going to take their time and share hard-won successes, the student better be worth it. So stage 5 is crossing the threshold, because this is when the commitment comes. This is when the student enrolls into my dojo or into somebody's training group, or they attend their first class, right? They join my inner circle, whatever, right? If they're on that path, excitement often mixes with fear. And they might not call it that. They might call it nervous anxiety. They might call it anxiousness. They might, whatever. They're on the fear slide scale. Okay. But it's also the student that, worked their asses off, got straight A's and whatnot, and applied for these different schools. But like, if I can get into this one, and then they do, right? So yeah, there's excitement, but then there's the, oh shit, they're going to expect results, right? But also, like, just like the university student not choosing the university near home so they can still live at home and hang out with their friends and have all the distractions, right? They move away, right? There's also that fear and anxiety because they're leaving the familiar behind. In the martial arts, we call this a musha shugyo, a warrior quest. There's a really good movie that outlines the warrior quest from a bunch of years ago. It's called The 13th Warrior. Antonio Banderas played in this, where he was exiled by his own father, who was a prince in this Arabian country, whatever, right? Got kicked out because he was a shithead. He was womanizing and getting drunk all the time and flaunting his power, which was really daddy's power and all that. And dad sent him to the Norse folks, to the Vikings and those guys, way bigger than him, way taller than him, right? European Norse horses, way taller. They laughed at his Arabian because it was like, to them, dog size, right? Didn't know the language, didn't know the culture, nothing, right? Completely ungrounded. That's a true warrior quest. Hayes took it when he went to Japan the first time. Right? Takuma Sensei took it when he went to China. Right? Where you have to figure it out. Right? So this is more than starting training. This is stepping out of a life of manipulation and passivity. Right? The threshold is symbolic. This is the moment that the hero to be, the student, is now claiming power over their own destiny. The question is, can they hold on to it? Okay. They made the step. But before I talk about stage 6 and the but, James, questions, comments, complaints? Any blood on the screen because people's heads exploded?
No. Alan said he's still awake in his comfy chair. And
feel free to fall asleep at any point.
Maui said the whole hero's journey is so intriguing and I'm glued to every word. Extremely fascinating.
Well, this is my surface level interpretation, so I apologize if I get any of it wrong. Okay? But this is a path, right? It's like when I introduced the idea to the students, and as a matter of fact, I think I did it, James. I don't know if you went through it or not. I know you did the free intro thing that I did before I did the Jusan Butsu course. I did that initial kind of a freebie kind of thing. I pull one of the concepts out and do this big webinar training kind of thing. It's a way to bait people in. It's the call to adventure. Shh, don't tell anybody, right? But when I realized that these weren't just characters in order and different mindsets and different activities and whatnot, but that the Jusan Butsu is the path, right? While it goes by different names and there's different stations and whatnot, there are still these things still going on, right? We can see It's just like I said, the ordinary world and the call to adventure, right? That Fudomyo slaps you awake, right? Slaps you out of your dull sleepwalk living, because everything's going along just fine. And all of a sudden, the fuck was that? That wasn't supposed to happen that way. It was supposed to, right? Everybody knows it, right? And then we go seeking a teacher, which is represented by Shakyamuni as the next stage, right? And Shakyamuni is symbolic of the teacher, and that Shakyamuni doesn't just have the answers to the what the hell just happened kind of thing, but also points out what the next character, Manjushri, represents, which is transcendental wisdom, uncommon, counterintuitive thinking. And at every point, we've got red pill, blue pill moments. Do I keep doing this or do I not, or whatever? And then the next character after Manjushri, and again, we look at the Joseph Campbell framework here, but the student has to make a freaking decision. Am I going to do this, or am I going to keep dabbling? Right? Or am I just going to, wander away? Life gets in the way. I forgot until Fudo, pow, smacks us again and wakes us up. Oh, shit. Yeah, I guess I better get back to training. Right? Whatever. Right? But the next character is Jizo, and Jizo represents, he's dressed as a monk, right? Bald head. He's got this shakujo, this staff with the 6 rings that represents the 6, traversing the 6 realms, dressed in, simple monk's robes. Jizo represents the discipline necessary to stay the path. Right? So these phases in the Joseph Campbell thing for these hero stories, one or more will fit into each of these things because of what's going on. Doesn't matter the framework. The path is the same. Okay? The hero's journey tends to fit better for outlining the warrior's path to their own mastery. Right? At a certain point, we're going to take on the role of being a master, not because we said so, but because we become that thing. And people say we stand on the shoulders of giants and all. We do. But here's a question. To stand on the shoulders of giants requires what? Them helping you with the climb, telling you how to do it and all that kind of stuff. But don't you have to climb up onto their shoulders? Unless you're gonna act like a goddamn 3-year-old, and they're gonna pick you up like Daddy did and put you on their shoulders. But now you're not really standing on their shoulders. You're sitting on their shoulders and you're going for a ride. Still going where somebody else is taking you. If the original premise was to stop being manipulated and having control of your own damn life and to be the captain of your own damn ship, you can learn all the things from captains or a captain of a ship and whatnot, but that will never put you in the pilot seat of your own ship. And maybe this is just an interesting thought. Anyway, anything else, James, before I jump into the trials and tribulations? They seem to keep creeping up.
No, not yet.
All right. This is not a path of comfort, folks. Right? I know what everybody thinks they're looking for. It's not the way it works. Okay? Stage 6. Halfway there. This is called Tests, Allies, and Enemies. Okay? So every student ends up facing fear, failure, pain, doubt, especially in the martial arts. I remember way back when I first started, Hatsumi Sensei did something. I think it was published in Black Belt magazine It might have been somewhere else. But he often did this in class as well. But he recounted one of these incidents in an article somewhere. Maybe it was in the Stephen Hayes Musubi newsletter, or the maybe, because often he would write stuff for our group, little insights and whatnot. And he was talking about how he would ask students why they want to train and needed to. And like some people would talk about like spiritual development. He'd go, seriously? Martial arts hurts too much. You want spiritual development? Just go to church. Right? And other people would mention like, physical fitness and flexibility and stuff. And he'd go, join a gym. Again, like, I'm going to make you learn stuff that you're not going to want to learn. I'm going to make you face things about yourself that you're not going to want to look at. Okay? You want to get in shape? Join a gym. All right? You want spiritual development? Go to church. This is going to be way too hard. All right? Because until we face that this is not about an easy path. It's supposed to hurt. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. And it will continue to be uncomfortable until we figure it out, until we get the experiences we need, the lessons we need. We own those lessons. And let me tell you a story. One of my students, talk about him a lot. Tim Wolf, big guy. Tim's like 6'5", and he's the oldest, I think, in his family. But he's the shortest. His mom was taller than him. Right? And I met her. She was a Gettysburg Civil War guide, a certified, like she had to go through all the tests and whatnot. You could go in and name any unit and any day or time of day, and she would take you to that part of the battlefield and tell you exactly what they were doing. That they had to be able to do that, right? And she did a private little thing for some of us because it was part of our military study. How did these folks do this? How did they read the terrain? Where were the mistakes made? Those kind of things, right? Tim and I hooked up just across Messenger about a week or so ago. And he reached out and just asked, how I was doing because of the fire and having to move the dojo and things like that. And I said, fine, just staying focused. Got to do, just I'm working on this, and this, just busy, but, getting things done. And he said, man, not everybody would have dealt with that this way. No folding, no wallowing in depression, no what am I going to do? No. Not only do I not have time for that, I never entertained that. The dojo needed to be relocated. The student body needed to get back to classes. Right? And I will deal with the legal things for the landlord and his family tenant person or whatever that created the mess later. Things need to be prioritized. This is just, if there's one thing I have learned and developed and internalized as a result of this path that I absolutely know and own as my superpower, is that no matter what happens, if it does not kill me and I have my faculties about me, I will figure it out. And I can't figure it out while shitting myself and panicking and whatever. When the carpet gets pulled out from under you, that's why we learn ukemi. We don't learn ukemi while the carpet's being pulled out. Sensei, I don't like rolling. I don't give a shit. And neither does the universe. But it hurts. Yep. You know when it'll stop? When your body gets conditioned to that. It hurts at my age. Hurts with my shape. But there's other things that have been learned to overcome that. Something hurting and being hurt as a result of it. Something hurting as in causing pain, and being damaged because we can't do it sufficiently enough to not be damaged are two completely different things, and they're not mutually inclusive. Of course it hurts. Nerve endings are being knocked into the world. Duh. But I'll figure it out. That's not something that I have to force myself to do. That's not who I was in the beginning. I was a scared little pussy. Because I was beaten into that. That was my self-image. There are things that scare me. There are things that cause anxiousness and all that. But through it all, I let the nervousness pass because it's a part of the adrenal system doing its thing. And then I get on with it. Because I'm a product of the training, I'm a product of the mentoring, and the trust that I put into those teachers that they were having me do things, learn things, and develop things that I needed to get where I said I wanted to go. Well, you don't understand, Sensei. You've had the money to go to training. And yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As a E3 private, not even an E4 in the Army, living in what was then West Germany, and my teacher was in Germantown, Ohio. What kind of a coincidence is that, or irony is that? Or going to Liverpool, England, where Bryn Morgan hosted Hayes, or going to Japan or whatever, and taking out loans to go, because doing it was more important than not. And getting the lessons and the training and becoming that new person was more important and less painful. The process was less painful than staying where the hell I was, being who I was, living with those feelings. We've had all kinds of different titles for the exact same thing. All I'm doing during this episode is laying out things that still point back to, if your why's not big enough, you're not going to make it. And all kinds of other titles that I've used. Right? What was that one title for the one KUDEN, James? What's your why? Right? Those kind of things. Right? But that calls into question more of these stages than just one. Okay? So the student or the hero to be, right, takes the leap, right? They join the classes, right? And then the tests begin. Training tests them with soreness, confusion, failure, punches ego right in the face. Life tests them with setbacks, conflicts, pressures to quit, significant others. The number of times I get freaking emails from people, I really want to do it, but my wife won't let me. Won't let you what? Won't let you become a better version of yourself? Won't let you become the family protector? What the hell are they not letting you do? What the hell is that? I'm sorry that you took your testicles off so many years ago. And this is not about being an asshole or a prick or whatever, and not having a mutually beneficial relationship. But something happened way, way before this person reached out to me wanting to train. But if I'm going to be met with, every suggestion is going to be met with, you don't understand, that's not going to work. I'm eventually just going to say, you're right. Apparently you need somebody else. Good luck with that. Okay. So, but there are tests. Okay. So stage 6 is called tests, allies, and enemies. Okay. They're going to be tests. Okay. As a matter of fact, in the earliest stages of my training, I had a mantra. Every time this stuff happened, whether it was soreness or confusion or I failed a test, right? Because my teachers had some pretty freaking high standards, as opposed to, oh, you've been training for how long? Oh, well, you should be this rank. Okay. Oh, by the way, that's, 5,000 yen, 10,000 yen, whatever. Okay. But pressures, job things, life twists, whatever. Okay. My mantra was, it's all a test. Everything's a test. Now it's in my lap. You gonna pass it? You're gonna fail. Failure is what? Going back to that state that you wanted to break out of to begin with. Those of you who went through the Jusan Butsu program, we talked about that. There's a certain point on that path where you still have red pill, blue pill moments, but you can't go back. And it's not that you can't, it's that the thought of going back and living an ordinary life after having seen all that you've seen, develop skills that you're gonna put on the back burner, or seeing how far you can go, and now you're gonna go back and pretend again, like in the Matrix movie when Cypher looks at Neo and goes, what the hell kind of a brain fuck is that, right? All the time I ask myself, why, oh, why didn't I take the blue pill? And then when the traitorous bastard was meeting with Agent Smith and agreeing, I'll get you Morpheus. I want to be put back into the Matrix, and I don't want to remember nothing. And I want to be rich. And I want to be all these distractions so I don't have to remember anything. Because that, living the lie and the comfort is better than seeing truth and reality. That doing what needs to be done to free myself, to free us from this bullshit. For some people, right? This is a huge stage. Okay. But also not just the test, right? But allies emerge, right? Other students, mentors, seniors, right? Enemies appear too. Fear, ego, self-doubt, manipulative influences pulling the hero back into that world, right? But what most people miss through all the pain and confusion is that these tests are a natural part of the process. And these tests build resilience. They build the resilience, the adaptability, the resolve, the strength that's needed, that masters have, that we don't see because they make everything look fucking easy. Well, no shit. It's because it takes a freaking tank to fall on them before they say ouch. Okay? But the hero to be, right? These tests, these enemies, they allow us to learn how to handle stress, both in combat and in life. How to handle when shit goes sideways. How to handle things when it doesn't go to plan. How to focus more on principles, concepts, and outcomes than on whatever things look like in the moment, as though that's fixed in time. Okay? So allies are training partners. They're mentors. They're our community of like-minded practitioners, because they're the only ones that can really understand the trials and tribulations we're going through, which is why everybody should have that. They should be a part of a dojo, even if it's distance, where they can feel like they're a part of a group of people working on the same thing, going through the same trials, the same tribulations, and all that. Okay, it's very difficult to do this alone. Okay. I mean, when I started my first training group, it was because my teacher told me I needed bodies. But you know what? My community needed me to do that so that there could be a group. We all call each other friends, but it's a group of like-minded people who they're the only ones. Friends and just like when I was a cop, friends, family, significant other, whatever. No one but my partners could ever understand the shit that we went through. Military-wise, law enforcement-wise, they would never understand. And they certainly don't want to know how bad it is and what kind of boogeymen are really out there. Okay? Enemies, not just those people that are self-serving and they don't want you to do it because you're taking time away from them or you're spending money on training that they would blow on something, whatever, right? Okay. Other enemies, complacency, right? I'll do it tomorrow. Ego, excuses. I know nobody ever has excuses. They're perfectly rational reasons. Yeah. Whatever ego wants to tell you, that's fine. Okay. Every test is meant to forge resilience. Every test gives us more tools, more insight, more experience that allows us to figure out and solve the next problem faster, easier, and with less wear and tear on us in the process. Until we end up looking like it's easy too. Hatsumi Sensei has said many practice martial arts as though they will always be calm, always in control and balanced. But life and death are chaos. The one who survives is the one who has trained for what others ignore. Just in case anybody needed a Soke quote, just to validate this whole thing. All right, stage 7. Stage 7 is called Approach to the Innermost Cave, or the Inmost Cave. I say innermost cave, right? So we go through all those tests. We go through the trials and, the enemies, allies, that kind of thing. But what makes us stay? What makes us fold? What allows the friends to distract us with, hey, let's go bowling or let's go drinking or whatever, right? Let's play Fortnite, whatever, right? What makes us say yes? Well, I don't want to lose my friends and I don't want to be divorced and lose half my shit and whatever, okay? But see, that points to something else. Okay, because stage 6 is external things. I know I mentioned some internal things, but those internal things are connected to the external. Okay, ego loads itself up with things that validate its existence. And ego wants to hold on to the old ways of comfort. Ego is the thing that's convincing you that you can become the hero, the warrior, the master, being the same person you are when you're navigating the ordinary world and feeling like shit. If I just had this skill, everything would be great. If I just had this much more money, everything would be great. If I just no. People with more money squander their money the same way they did when they had less money. They just buy more expensive shit, or they buy more stuff. Okay. People that are lousy at or they get into relationships because somebody's better than nobody at all, or they need somebody to fill in the cracks and make them feel like they're not what they feel like, right? Have lousy judgment skills when it comes to other people. They're choosing somebody for the wrong reasons. They're not choosing a partner in life or a partner in business or a significant friend who will call them on their shit. They're looking for people that are exactly the same so that nobody calls them on doing dumb things. Stage 7 is about facing deeper fears. This is the internal stuff. Confronting pain, confronting the reality of violence, like those 2 students, right? Confronting inner limitations, confronting the things the ego tries to cover up and not let anybody else see. But the mentor, the real mentor who's been there, they can see that. I've had students not come back the next class when I pushed the facade aside, figuratively, and said, I know. It's easy to do these things when everybody that we're surrounded by either doesn't see it or doesn't mention it. But if we're trying to grow and we're around people that are trying to help us, they can see it. Okay? So you have a choice. Let them guide you through it, so that that's not a problem anymore, or go back to hiding. And they fucking go back to hiding because it's the easiest thing. Huh? In Mikyo, there are descriptions of the process, stripping you naked and ripping you raw, flesh off of you, so that you're completely exposed for who and what you are. You can hide nothing. But to recognize ultimate truth, how are you going to see it out there if you're not willing to look at it here? All right? So at this point, the hero to be realizes this journey isn't about learning moves. It's about becoming someone new. In the 12-fold chain of dependent origination, which is another teaching for karma, right? There is this crucial point where the old drivers, the old ignorance, the old volition causes to reach out, right? There's desire, which begets grasping, right? I want that thing. I want the comfort, or I want the avoidance of pain, or just whatever, right? That's our moment between grasping and clinging. Because what we grasp, what we choose to hold on to, determines the rest of the chain. What we become, the metaphor for sickness, old age, and death. Sickness, the dissolution of things, right? And then death determines, right? Because if we reach out and we grab what we've always grabbed, we do what we've always done, same habit patterns, same safety net, same whatever, then we become a stronger version of what we've always been, because we've done it again. And what dissolves, right? That becoming leads to birth, leads to dissolution, leads to death, right? Just we're reborn in the same shit. What dissolves is more of that dream, more of that drive, more of that ability to become the new self. And eventually what dies until we die is the dream itself. But if during that grasping, does this serve me? Is this where I'm going to be going? Is this wasting time, effort, money, whatever on shit that does not produce the kind of life, me, experience, or whatever I want to live? Does it? If the answer is yes, great. Grab it and hold on with everything you got. If the answer is no, then the grasping is to grasp something different, or to just hold back. Okay? Because if I can grasp the thing that is right, if I can do that roll that's going to hurt, if I can make the next mistake, if I cannot go into a 5-minute diatribe about how I really know what the lesson is, but I can't break the habit, but I can't what, and just taking time away from whatever, right? If I can not do that thing, right? If I can stay the course, right? Then I become more of that new thing. And what's born is a new person, the new me, with a new experience, a new lesson, a new power, a new strength. What dissolves is a little bit more of the old me. What dies are those habits, those limitations, those inhibitions, those fears, all that shit that was anchoring me to something that was unbearable, which is why I started out on the path to begin with. Sorry, I didn't mean to turn this into me, but it's not you until it's about you. Okay? It's about becoming someone new. You can't get there as the person who was stuck because there's a reason, right? Not just the external forces. That person was an accomplice to their own ass kicking. Okay? But most people don't realize is that they have the key to the jail cell. Now, you're going to fight through the armies and the guards and all that kind of shit to get out of the keep. But, okay? But the cave is emotional too. Okay? Because when we become that new person, we're going to lose friends. We're going to lose family members. We're going to lose old peers because they were attracted to the old form. But fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of truly changing. Right? We have to let go of the old self to move forward. And that's scary for a lot of people. Especially when things are comfortable, especially when things are good. Right? Everybody gets giving up shit for better. Anything's got to be better than this. We're not talking about that. We're talking about giving up good for better. I don't believe in best. But unless we're willing to give up good for better, it's comfort's a poison. Unless we're not sure what the next move is, which is why we need a mentor. Or we're not sure, but we have the resolve that I'm going to figure it out. That's how we develop the ability that no matter what, the brain gets wired to be a puzzle solver, a problem solver. We stop using terms like, yeah, see what the problem is. It's not that we don't use the term, but the term gets used. Yeah, but the problem is, so how do we solve that? As soon as we identify what the problem is, it becomes the mission. Because until that gets solved, can't do the rest of the thing. Yeah, but the problem is, for most people, is a cop-out. It's an excuse. All these things have to be dealt with. Okay? It's not until, right? I had to face fear on that C-130. I had to face fear going through a divorce, and another divorce, and right, blaming myself and all those kind of things. I don't blame the other person either. Right? The person I become, not easy to live with. It's called standards. But it also made me choose a wife that I wasn't hoping they would be something. I had a litmus test. I knew what kind of person I needed to be with that would complement me, not succumb to my domination, but also not somebody that if honey ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Well, that's a hell of a life. So one person has to be a slave so that everybody can be happy, but how the hell is a slave happy? I think that's why a lot of spiritual people just go off to the mountains and say, screw it. Anyway, this leads us to point number 3, right? So point number 1 was what? Nobody can walk this path for you. Point number 2 was what? What was it? The teacher is a mentor, not a savior. They don't motivate you. Their job begins and ends with teaching the lessons and guiding you to be able to see and go learn and experience those things that you need to be able to do what they can do. It's to uncover, here's all the things I did to be able to get to this point. All my friends did the same thing to get to this point. If you want to get to this point, these are the things you have to do. They can't do it for you. They can only point the way. They're not the hero. This is your story. This is your path. You're the hero in your own story. All right? Point number 3. You must face challenges, hardships, and defining moments. There is no easy path. Okay? Transformation only comes through discomfort and persistence. What kind of fucked up thing is that? We're training to be warriors, heroes and warriors. We're going to get beaten. We're going to get bruised. Every fight, every battle, every time we rush in to save the damsel in distress or whatever. Have we seen a fight scene where, unless it's an alien sci-fi thing, he dies? Nobody buys tickets for shit like that. And what kind of life is that? We value that which we struggle to get more than anything else because we know we freaking earned it. The shit we were given, or it was free or whatever, it might be distracting or amusing for a while. And then we don't give a shit if we lose it, it breaks or whatever. It's free. Who gives a shit? The stuff we value the most, we struggle the most to get. And the sword that lasts a couple hundred years was folded more, heated more, beaten more, not only withstood the stress of the tempering and the oil or water bath. And it wasn't just that. Oh shit, I left it at the dojo. I'm reading a new treatise by somebody that wrote their thing long time before Musashi wrote the Book of Five Rings and all that stuff. But one of the things about swords in there was newly forged swords. A warrior with a new sword, no matter how well that sword can cut, will ultimately blunder because the sword can't be trusted. Only a sword that has survived battle and has lasted for over 100 years can be relied upon. See, that's the shit you get from mentors who have been through it and understand that no matter how good it looks, no matter how sharp it is today or whatever, it's only that has lasted and survived the test of time, test after test after test. Most resilient, most dependable, whatever. Right? Because it was made for that. Heroes are made for that. Heroes aren't born. Right? That bullshit, right? All these excuses. Well, see, you have X, you have Y, you have Z, you've done this, bullshit. Poor, beaten, abused. There's a reason I don't want to hear a lot of shit. I still do. Because everybody has it. Everybody believes that there's an easy path. No. Transformation only comes to discomfort and persistence. You must learn the lessons you need. You must gather the strength and resources you need. You must make the connections with mentors and peers and create your ninja network and whatnot. You must make the right connections with the right people that you need if you're going to succeed. You have to make the journey. I don't care if we're looking at Tolkien's Hobbit or we're Star Wars or the story of, place your name there. Okay. Okay. So where's my next one? So the this approaching the innermost cave, right? This is where we face all these things that we lack, right? We have to gather our resources. We have to, right? We have to collect the things we need, right? This is one. There was a KUDEN where I discussed. James, maybe you can help me out with this. I discussed something that rich and successful people used. It was a rule that they applied that most people do not, that allow them to live the kind of life they want to live. And I just mentioned that, I think, in a post today. And the answer is not greed for people who like to go there quickly and easily, because they need there to be a reason that they can't do what they want. And it has to be somebody else's fault. Okay? But that rule is the rule of exclusion. And what that means is they first determine the kind of life they want to live and what that's going to cost. Okay? In terms of loyalty and energy and money and time and those kind of things. What's the cost to live at that level comfortably with a smile on your face? And we'll pick money, right? So then they determine where's the cutoff line for jobs, occupations, professions, or whatever that will produce the minimum necessary or more to live that way. And everything below that line as options gets excluded. Friends, connections, potential significant others who are going to just burn through things or break it, or you don't let people into your freaking life that are going to screw whatever, right? It's the rule of exclusion. It is not anything's better than nothing. Anybody's better than nobody at all. At least I have a job. Okay, well, if that's your belief, then stop bitching. If that's the choice, if that's the comfort level, shouldn't be any problems. But there's still discontent. Well, then there's got to be something else going on. Okay, yeah, but see, to get this, I'm not that. They expect this kind of education or these kind of skills. Okay, great. Yes. Next part. To get these, what knowledge do I have to have? What skills do I have to have? Right? What are the resources? What connections? Whatever. And then now I've got a freaking roadmap. I got a plan. Now I collect these things. Okay? I have to face the fact that to make it the rest of the way at this point, there may be things that I'm missing. So what are they? We go back collecting them. Okay? In Star Wars movie, the very first one, right? This stage would be Luke Skywalker and his companions approaching the Death Star, right? But they're not there yet. They're not flying in, right? They're approaching, right? But they're on that planet where they're preparing for the final battle. They're gathering supplies. There's dialogue and stuff, but all you see in the background are all these fighters being loaded and all these supplies being moved around, all that kind of stuff, right? And they're finalizing their plan of attack. In the movie Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? This is where he's airlifted in by helicopter. He's dropped in. He's got this, rubber boat and whatnot. Comes in, hits the beach, and what does he do? For the next fucking 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, he's loading up. How many knives, guns, grenades, all kinds of stuff, right? Getting ready to storm the compound. On the mandala, on the Taizokai mandala, there's the Hall of the Light Kings. That is your army for storming the gates of enlightenment. These lessons are primordial. And I think they're primordial because they reach into our very soul, because we know what we need. And we know why a hero is a hero. And we know why people that walk around like a hero and then fold like a bad piece of fucking origami when the shit hits the fan, we know why they fold. Because it was bullshit. Nothing but a facade. Same reason why some of us were planning actions scared out of our fucking boots. Holding that M16 like I choking a fucking goose's neck, staring at that fuselage, running a Rolodex, lessons, cover, concealment, lines of fire, right? Listening to facades crack. This is why I wrote it somewhere. I don't know, I've got this somewhere. The path of the warrior is not paved with comfort. It's forged in the fires of challenge. So we need to stop freaking avoiding challenge. We need to stop avoiding honey's not going to like it, or like, I might lose my job if I tell them, look, I don't care if I'm needed or not. Like, I've got to be at this seminar at this time, or this, I go every year. This is a part of my process. I can replace a job. I can't replace the lessons I'm going to miss. Okay. Anyway, we'll cover more of this stuff about things going sideways and all that on Wednesday for Whiteboards Wednesday. Oh, by the way, there will not be a Friday coaching call this week. Sorry for the Ninpo Masterclass folks and whatnot. Taking a little weekend getaway. I got to reset. So taking my daughter and my grandson, and we're just gonna go to a lake and decompress. So anyway, nothing on Friday, nothing on Saturday morning for the local students. Anyway, stage 8. It's called the ordeal. Right, we're almost there. So here comes the defining moment. Okay, this might be a high stress drill in dojo, maybe a real life confrontation, maybe a personal crisis. Everything that the hero to be has learned is tested. It's painful, it's scary, but most importantly, it's transformational. Right? The ordeal is not just about surviving an attack. It's about facing life's darkest moments and refusing to break. It's in this moment that they realize that resilience is their superpower. Okay? My mantra is, no matter what, I will figure it out. If it hasn't killed me, I will figure it out. Okay? When resilience and adaptability, and these things that we get attracted to because it's about warriorship, it's about being a ninja, those kind of things, right? When we realize that the firm resolve, I will not break. You cannot outwork me. You cannot break me, right? If you don't kill me, you better hope I'm in a coma and I never wake up. Right? No matter what the problem is. I may not figure it out today. I may not figure it out this week. I will figure it out. Right? The transformed student, right? This is where they step into that hero. The hero never, look at these freaking movies. Look at these stories. The hero never leaves the fray untouched. Armor's hanging off of them if they're still wearing anything, half freaking naked. They're bleeding from wounds. They're exhausted, that kind of stuff. Not broken. They don't come out pissing and moaning. Oh my freaking God, you see what happened? Oh shit. They walk out, and what's the first thing they do? Everybody okay? Okay. All right. I need to sit down for a moment. But are you good? Okay. If you're not good, I'm not going to sit down. Right? But they don't expect that that's the last thing. Maybe where the movie ends. That's why they have sequels. But it just makes them stronger for the next time. Okay? The transformed student, the hero, calm, capable, respected, ready. All right? And this is another transformational point. Okay? Just like Morpheus said in the Matrix movie, you take the blue pill, the story ends. At any point along this path, you could take the blue pill. Story ends, you end up right back in the ordinary world, right? You wake up in your bed, believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. That's what a mentor does, no matter what. As long as you're there, the mentor will continue to guide, right? Because they know, right? If you don't break, you'll do it. Everything will be fine. But most people think the path is easy. Rich people don't understand. Really? What's that story about Damocles, right? Resented, he was a poor person or whatever. The king goes gold, live any way he wants. King agrees to trade places with him. Lays back for that nap on the king's bed. wakes up and there's a fucking sword hanging from the ceiling over his head. What the hell? What's the king say? That's my life every day. Okay? Of course they have to make millionaires have to make a lot of money. There's people have to sue them every day, or trying to figure out a way to get some of it, or to steal some of it, or to undermine it somehow, right? Pressure them into giving even more. And well, yeah. Okay. But you know what? All those rich people have like a lot of employees. Yeah, I know they should pay them more too. Without ever, people need to go through a fucking economics class, just a basic one. Just anyway. So stage 9, right? That was stage 8, the ordeal. Yeah, stage 9, the reward. After the ordeal comes the reward. They gain confidence, skill, and clarity. They feel powerful, yet calm, not reckless, but prepared. Okay? The sword they seize, like Arthur pulling that sword out of the stone and whatnot, right? It isn't just a weapon. It's inner strength. It's strategic thinking and freedom. They begin to live with purpose. They begin to live on purpose. Their purpose, their map. They begin to set damn standards as to who can do what in their realm. Not because they're a bossy ass, but because anybody that gets to be in their realm has to be of a certain level or quality. They're no longer the anybody's better than nobody at all, because they can't have energy suck, resources suck, and all that, because they don't know when the next calamity is going to be, or the next time they need to step up and help somebody who actually needs help and doesn't just want a free ride. Stage 10 is called the road back. They return to daily life, just like when Siddhartha Gautama hard won the stage of enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. Got up, went back into the world, found his first 3 disciples and taught them, and then taught others and whatever, right? They return to daily life, but they're different. In Mikyo, we have this character called the Bodhisattva, right? Symbolically, they're represented by a lotus, right? Like a water lily, right? Grows up out of this fucking muck and mire and cloudy water and shit, right? And then blooms into the sun, right? So they're said to be of the world. They're in the world, but not of the world, right? They've come from the same place, but they don't act the same way. They don't carry themselves the same way, right? Challenges still come, but they meet them with strength and control. They handle them very differently than the way everybody else does, right? But here's another roadblock. The martial arts training, because I've seen this in Japan. I've seen people that their taijutsu's great in the dojo. Got that uniform on and everything, right? They're attentive, they're aware, right? Focused. Then I follow them. After we get changed, we leave the dojo, and I'm behind them. Whatever, we go to the train station and scuffing their feet. They're loud. Plop down in seats, either at the station or on the train, legs splayed out. Again, loud, not paying attention. Just completely different. And here's another roadblock. Some people leave the lessons at the dojo door. Like I said, they scuff their feet, they slip back into ordinary habits, they hide their growth so as to not upset anybody. It's another red pill, blue pill moment. Do you integrate the elixir, the lessons, right? Or do you go back to sleep? Do you hide it? Because I don't want to lose them. I don't want to offend them. I don't want to make them uncomfortable. And what I've learned is that each class we go to is a micro pilgrimage in and of itself. We go to class, right? We make the commitment. We cross the threshold. We go through the tests and the trials and the ordeals. We make a decision. Every technique, every lesson, right? We're going to refuse the call. Every KUDEN, every Whiteboard Wednesday. We're going to refuse the lesson. We're going to integrate the lesson. We're going to go through the hardship. We're going to do what Sensei suggests. Are we going to pick and choose because it's my life? You're right. What are you going to do with it? All right? Ordinary? Better than most. Or are you going to be the fucking hero or the warrior? You're going to be the master that you've always wanted to be. You going to dabble? You're going to be like everybody else, putting on a good show. Again, every class is a pilgrimage. The real power is in carrying awareness into everything. Walking, sitting, speaking, everything with integrity. Walking the talk. Okay? As Shrey Sensei told me one time after wearing out my freaking legs, because he showed me how to walk correctly in the dojo, and then because he was visiting Toronto, I was the guy with the car, driving him everywhere and stuff. Every time we were walking, every time the walking slipped. Jeff's son, good ninja walking, good ninja idea. I think so. Okay? Most Westerners would take that as a suggestion. I knew better. In Japan, you want to get this right? Fix it. Oh, my legs were sore. Legs were so sore. Okay. Either one of mentors. How do I know when I'm doing it wrong? Boca's region freaking filters out all the shit that we do that isn't conducive. Until I own it and I'm doing that thing without having to think about it, then I'm not there. Okay. Stage 11, the resurrection. Ooh. Right? So then comes one last major challenge. It's often unexpected. It throws people off. Okay? But this time, the hero responds instinctively with confidence and power. They emerge as the warrior protector they were meant to be. The time I was absolutely blindsided by this guy that I was trying to calm down. Turned out I had to apprehend the guy. Trying to calm down. Big, just jacked, right? And just started firing these things off. And I had to freaking catch up to, holy shit. In Hoko just trying to not get hammered. Don't do this shit. Only works in a freaking ring. Okay? Because you can't hit somebody while you're I get it. They're trying to protect their brain box, right? But that's what Hoko's for, right? And it wasn't until, like, in the middle, there was this moment like, oh shit, I know this. Zipped the Mushadori on him, laid him out, used it to flip him over, got him into cuffs and all that, used my nightstick to, because he was still fighting. This guy was, 4 MPs were trying to hold this guy down. And it wasn't until afterwards that I thought, oh, dude, wow. There was no concern. There was no fishing for techniques. There was no, those moments when you walk away like, yes, kind of thing, right? I don't know that I did that, but I did think, holy shit, that's what he meant by owning it. The mental skills, the observation, the zanshin, the technique. It's just, I knew what to do. And after that, I kept training. After that, I kept learning, right? Because really there is no end to the path, but the path proved itself. I proved to myself that not only could I do it, I was doing it already. This final trial cements the new identity. This is where the hero, that they've conquered fear, self-doubt, all that, and they've proven their transformation to themselves. They know it. They live it and they breathe it. Okay? And finally, stage 12 is where we'll wrap this up. Return with the elixir. That's what Joseph Campbell calls it, right? Finally, they bring their new strength back to their world. Family feels safer. Coworkers respect their calm leadership. Friends notice the change. Some don't like it. Some do. Okay. But this elixir, it's not something wild and crazy and woo-woo, right? This elixir is wisdom. It's confidence. It's the ability to protect, not just in fights, but in life's chaos. Somebody freaks out, right? Ask my wife. She knows my mantra. It's okay. I'll take care of it. It's what I do. And she immediately begins to breathe easier. Doesn't mean that there isn't like this, that the adrenals aren't kicking in and all these kind of things are going on. But that's since I made a very, very clear difference between that nervousness and anxiety and whatnot from that adrenal system that shocks the system, and people don't know what to do with it and they don't understand it and they fear that, right? Because that's the feeling of fear. But if you can let that ride, the system, you gain this sense of equilibrium and you get this sense of calm. You're jacked, but the system has done its thing. The cells have been affected. Everything's in this new state. So he draws a very, very clear distinction, which if you don't get it, keep working, between nerves, like fear-based nerves, and Budo nerves, where it's on and those things are happening, but there's this stasis and you can operate. But people will often stop because they don't like feeling that, because that's the feel of fear. That's the feel of that's blowing my cool. Yeah, well, when you learn to ride through that, because it's a normal process of the adrenal system changing your state, fight, flight, freeze. To the skills and the abilities and all that are so we can fight or flee if we need to grab people and go get the hell out of here. That monster's too big. But either way, right? It's the calm within the storm. So the point here is that the hero now lives as a true warrior protector, not a facade. They live embodying what others only dream of. Right? In Ninjutsu, we call this working one's will without action. It's a big part of the Kuji. Your very presence influences others to rise, fall away, or change. The hero becomes the catalyst in their own world. Working one's will without action, when you become this new thing, people will drift away from you that don't want to be around somebody like that. Happy, relaxed, confident, because they're either a control freak or they're afraid of their own freaking shadow. Okay? They were okay with you the way you were because they could do their little things and they could pretend and whatever. But they don't like being around somebody like that, right? You see it all over the internet, right? They're the ones that are name calling and all that kind of stuff. Anybody that's skilled, powerful, whatever, they want to tear them down because that's easier than walking the same goddamn path and becoming that thing that they really secretly, in their heart of hearts and on their darkest nights while they're crying into their fucking pillow, wish they were. But when you become this thing, you attract the right kind of people because they want to be around somebody like that. You repel the ones who don't, or that know that they can't pull their bullshit in your presence because you'll call them on it. You're not worried about losing friends. You're not worried about whether or not you'll be alone because you know there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Okay. All right. So again, just before I open this thing up to anything, if there's going to be anything, right? The hero's journey is yours. No one can walk this for you. Okay. Little shameless plug here. That's what we have our programs for. That's why we have a wide range of programs. That's why I'm not teaching the same shit the same way that everybody else is. It's not shit. But if everybody's doing it the same way, then that's the biggest distraction out there because it looks like that's it. Right? If anybody thinks they can just imitate moving like Hatsumi Sensei to be at the level of understanding and skill that he is without going through the process that he did, that Takamasa Sensei made him go through, they're on crack. Huh? Any mentor, I can guide you, but I can't walk the path for you. That choice is yours. Either take the first step, take the next step, figure out where you are, figure out what you really need, right? Or in all honesty, stop talking about it. Right? Anybody can walk the path. It's not about whether or not they can. It's about whether they're willing to. Because anybody can walk it when it's comfortable and it's nice, and the teacher's speaking nicely to you and telling you how great you are. Right? You did that right. Oh, it's good. Or, I'll work on that a little bit more. But that accountability is a bitch. And until we can be accountable to ourselves, we're going to need somebody else. Not with that pat on the back, but with that tip of the boot to the ass. Not everyone's cut out for that kind of mentor either. All right, James, wake up. No, I'm just kidding. I can see him. Questions, comments?
Just from Nick Tomlinson, said great conversation and can relate to every word. Thank you for sharing.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for being on. I appreciate it. My wife tried to distract me tonight because, we don't see each other a whole lot. We've got this weekend coming up, but she was missing the king. And I said, she goes, "Can't you just cancel this one or whatever?" And I said, 1, consistency. And 2, I don't do this for fun. I enjoy doing it. But this is not one of those, I got my own podcast. And right? Sometimes James and I are sliding in, he comes from his little world and I come from, how about it? Today it was my turn, right under the wire, right? Other days, some of you guys have been on, right? James pops in I'm in the middle of the monologue and stuff. And I even say, I know he's working hard. It's that time of year and whatnot. And ding, oh shit, he's on. Okay. And other times it doesn't work out. So I get it, but it has my name on it. So unless I'm flat out or I'm out in the middle of the ocean somewhere on a ship, not on a rubber dinghy, hopefully not floating around, right? I'm going to be on because ill or not, or broken or not, or as long as I can, I will figure out how to make it happen. And if not, well, we've got 200 at this point, wrapping this one up, 269 previous episodes for somebody to fill their Monday evening with if they miss hearing, seeing, or whatever, me, or avoiding whatever chores they're avoiding, or talking to somebody they don't want to talk to, or whatever. Okay. Beats binge watching that same movie that I've watched 2,700 times on Netflix before. Anyway, what do we got? Anything else?
No, I don't see anything else.
Okay, Syracuse, New York, September 20th, fall camp, 2025. So if you're listening to this after 2025, ignore all these. October 17th, 18th, and 19th. And then for 2026, Daikomyo Sai is January 9th, 10th, and 11th. Do I have that one right? Yes. Okay. So the Syracuse thing got a little bit delayed. That'll be up, should be up by tomorrow evening. The fall camp stuff is up. If you're in my inner circle, Shinobi Kai, Ninpo Mastery, Ninpo Elite, don't forget you need to email us to get your 50% discount link. Everybody else, there's an early bird thing. It runs out August 15th. After that, it's going to be full price. But check it out. Hopefully you'll make it one way or the other, right? It's live or memorize. I mean, no, it's live at the dojo or virtual through Zoom. Okay. And I think that's it. Thanks, James. As always, I appreciate it. Right. James is always in the background doing stuff. That it? Nobody else? Okay. So if you're okay with this, right, I guess you saved Trinity. You're welcome. But yeah. So for anybody who didn't, well, she has broad shoulders too. All right, that's it. I'll talk to everybody again next time. Be safe, and I will talk to you either on Wednesday for Whiteboard Wednesday or next week on KUDEN. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.